this computer. Lights, camera, action. Everybody, Zach Deane here. Super excited to introduce you to Patrick Durkin. Oh gosh, I've been introduced to this genius through a friend of mine from Sydney, Jules, and she is so passionate about water. And she knew that I was doing this podcast, and she goes, "Hey, you have to interview Patrick. He's an absolute genius on water, structured water." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Let's chat." So thank you so much for jumping on here, Patrick. I'd love to quickly introduce you to everyone before we get into this. For those who don't know Patrick, he has had a calling to make plastic bottles obsolete and has turned his life into a dedication to creating a world of love and oneness, which I love. He's fueled by unrelenting passion. You're going to hear his passion. He is so full of knowledge, and he's on a mission to uplift humanity. He will support you to awaken your superpowers through immersion in living water, quantum physics, and loving all that is. He is the author of the Wellness Enterprise Incorporated, the Structured Water Superstore, Magic Water 101, God Self University, and the author of Flow from Pure and Safe Water to High States of Consciousness. We're going to be talking about how to turn water into safe water for you and your family. We're going to talk about how to access love and oneness through water. We're going to talk about structured water and what that actually is, and really, do a deep dive into one of the most important topics on health. So Patrick, thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love that intro. Like, makes me remember my journey and think about the superpowers that I've developed, and that we get to talk about that and sharing that with others. This is so cool. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Oh, we're excited. So we've got a big community listening at the moment, and I'd love just to start off with your story, how you got into doing this work. It's so interesting.
You know, I thought life was all about money. Like, I was a financial advisor for 18 years, and I was always at like the top of the firm. Like, I sold more than everybody else and made a lot of money for myself, and a lot of my clients made money. And I thought that's what life was about. And even like, I got so far with that. It's like, I paid off my house. I got all the toys I wanted. I gave myself a Porsche for my birthday. I was miserable. I have fear in my heart every day of my life. And you know, as life would have it, there was like an intermixing of what became my current life was mixing into my old life. So I became the chairman of the recycling committee in Hingham, Massachusetts. And I started a project to get rid of plastic water bottles. And I just kept following the thread. Like, if you really want to be somebody who contributes to a global solution for getting rid of plastic water, then when you start having like reusable containers, it's not enough. Like, everybody has 6 reusable bottles. Like, that doesn't get rid of plastic bottles. So it's like, okay, well, if that's not enough, what else do I have to do? Well, how about you start learning about water quality? So I started learning about water quality. And then there were different types of filters. It was like, you know, people would buy filters from me and they'd be like, okay, thanks. You know, that's good. I'm happy with it. But nobody was like jumping up and down, you know? And then these structured water devices came along, and I was like, by this point, I had left the financial industry confident. I've been such a successful salesman. I was like, I'm just going to jump into this water thing and I'll make a business. Little did I know I'd go 3 years with no income, nothing. And it was like, you know, a test from God, like, are you willing to do this? Not for money? I'm like, yeah, there's nothing else I'm going to do. Like, this is it. There was never a plan B. And so as I learned, I sold different types of water filters, and I learned it helped, but it didn't make all the difference. And then these structured water devices came, and I was like, I can't sell those. They don't have any replacement parts. They don't have any maintenance, and they fully solve the problem that people have. How am I going to make money from that? I'll have to get millions of new clients to ever have a really successful business, or at least a whole lot of them. So I tried pushing it away. And I think when I stepped out of the corporate world and I had the courage to have some quiet in my life and the space to interpret life's actions and see, like, what's an open door and what's a shut door. And I started to see, if I would trust that I could come to understand these structured water devices and tell the story, I would be supported. Like, there'd be like little magic wings that would go with me. So it just, you know, how I got into it, it felt lighter and easier than the pain of fighting it. That was really it. And that was 2012. I learned about structured water. 2010, I started the water business as a whole. And it wasn't until 2013 that we really became a company. So it was a long time ago.
That's a big mission, and pulled by the inspiration and supported. And I know that you guys are very innovative, and I'm really curious to know what you guys have on the horizons. But before we get into that, I'd love to know what is structured water. Like, you know, people know there's water filters out there. There's, you can buy, I guess, water from the mountains here in Australia. There's so many different types of waters, but what is structured water?
So I think the first place we need to start is for our listeners who haven't heard of it before to try to think about how they're listening to the answer. So everything in your head, if you haven't heard about structured water and changing water with physics before this conversation, is all about chemistry of water. We've been taught to fear toxins and remove things. But nobody ever taught us that putting water through a long straight pipe causes the energy of the water to be measurably different and to have the water's energy be greatly diminished. Nobody's ever taught us that. Nobody's ever taught us that there's different types of water in our body, and that our body can actually take that water from a long straight pipe or from a filter and change it to get it into our cells. It changes it to structured water, because structured water is the water inside our cells. So to understand what structured water is, we need to begin to open up to these new concepts, that there's energetic properties to water. Like, well, what kind of energy? Energy like negative ions, energy like everybody likes walking near the beach, right? Because we feel good when we're doing that, because there's all these negative ions floating around in the air, and that makes us feel good. Well, we can have negative ion rich water. So structured water is the water that's moving in nature. Nature uses the vortex spin, like the spin of a tornado, to clean water and to energize water. So structured water is also the water in a Maui waterfall. That's one of my favorite places to go. And for me, it's like, it's impossible to be in a bad mood in a Maui waterfall. Can't do it, because it just makes me happy. Structured water is the water inside of fruits and water-rich vegetables. So I did a melon cleanse for a month. All I ate was melons for a month. And I didn't, at that time, believe the people who were telling me structured water was the water inside of plants and fruits and vegetables. But when I did the month-long cleanse, I drank about half as much water as usual, and I was just as hydrated as usual. So it's the water in cells, it's the water in plants, fruits, and vegetables, it's the water in nature, and it's all characterized by the different energetics that it has, that it really supports life.
So then how do we turn our tap water into structured water? Do you still need a filter as well as a structured water as like a device? Because I originally had like one of these, which was, I guess, on the inside has these little balls in there that kind of create a structure, like I guess the structured water. And I noticed when I went traveling and I used it, it was really beneficial for absorption for bottled water and things like that. And so is what you guys do very different?
So let's start with free and basic, because that's always a good way to help people out, right? So you can go to Niagara Falls or to the beach, and you can be around and you can be in structured water. That's one answer. Other answer, we learned from Dr. Emoto about the power of words on water, and that words actually change water crystal photographs. So if you put the word hate on water, then you get a photograph that looks really ugly. If you put love on it, it looks really pretty. So our words are structuring water. So you want to talk about free? Well, drop the swears, drop the heavy metals, drop the hateful thoughts, and start cultivating harmony, right? Create coherence in the way you speak. That is structuring water. Then, almost free, how about some Himalayan salt? Himalayan salt does something for structuring water. Adding some lemon juice, eating more fruits and vegetables that are water rich. These are all structuring water. Now, my experience having experimented with all of them, because I've basically turned my life into a laboratory where all I do is think about water. I'm fairly uniquely focused, inspired, and passionate about life. Like I really want to get this water thing figured out. So, I mean, my poor kids, they grow up and all their dad talk about is water, right? So what I've discovered in all the comparisons and the times where I've put myself on month-long melon cleanses, or I've tried using different products that structure water, is that for me, the best answer for structuring water is a vortex spin, right? So vortex spin is, mathematicians say it's infinitely fast, right? So think about that for a second. You know, we're so used to defining life through our five senses and thinking we know things. It makes us feel good to have certainty and smarts. As human beings, we can't measure how fast water spins in a vortex. There's something infinite going on there. There's something transformative. When a tornado touches down on the earth with that vortex spin, it touches matter and rearranges it into completely different things. So vortex spin is really, really powerful. So I think the best way to structure water the most powerfully, all the others we've mentioned are really good, maybe nature being the best, and then those little things we talked about like salt and lemons and fruits, that's all really good. And then a vortex is phenomenal. And so that industry started maybe 100 years ago with Victor Schauberger, who was a naturalist in Austria, and he did a lot of observation in nature. And he learned he could move logs downstream much faster if he spun them or if he had proper curves. And so when they moved in the right direction, they'll flow. I often play with this when I'm letting the water out of my tub. I'm like, sometimes, you know, you get the spin going. You ever seen that?
Sure, yeah.
And sometimes you don't. And it's like, I've never gotten a stopwatch to figure it out, but I think when the spin's going, the water drains faster.
Interesting. Yeah, that's,
So,
you know, I don't know if you've ever seen one of those Marvel movies with the superhero with the big mace axe thing. What's it called? Anyway, I can't remember what his name. It's Chris Hemsworth. Thor. And so when he shoots through space and he flies, he spins his hammer like this. Anyway, that just reminded me of it. So maybe he's tapping into the cyclone ability too.
I think the vortex, you know, you start thinking about these things long enough, you attract like little random pieces of knowledge. Like when salmon go upstream, you ever think about that? Like how a salmon like swims all the way back to where it came from?
Must be challenging.
It's amazing, right? And I've been to Alaska and like seen some of the jumps they make. And it's like, it's crazy what they go through. They actually hit little gaps of vortexes in the stream coming down. And that's how they get pulled up rather than just like fighting through the water, right? So all these little miracles of vortexes. So for me, top of the list is having a vortex spin. And then there's something that's like not on the list. So there's companies out there, you know, there'll always be companies that catch the idea of something and they'll be like, hey, we're gonna sell this structuring device because everybody's into it. And they all bring their devices to me and they're like, will you sell ours? I'm like, well, if you use electricity, you're out. Like, I don't even want to test it. I don't want it in my house. I don't want to put water in it. There's just no reason to do it that way. Like electricity, like a whirring motor or an electrolyzing plate or anything like man-made that's like shocking water. No, that's not it. It's like I'm cultivating coherence and harmony. And that's where the vortex spin and sacred geometry and whatever I can do to have the most natural materials possible. That's what I'm after.
And it's, yeah, this is what we're all about, is tapping back into nature, the natural frequencies, you know, frequency therapy, some all into sunlight and grounding and trying to get the sunrise and no fake light at nighttime. And so this is just the clearest, like ideally you want to be getting water from a natural stream because it's creating it. But if you can't live next to a natural stream, this might be the next best thing with having the device to go through. Because my understanding is with the pipes that all the pipes that we're living getting this water through are going through right angle pipes. And is it true that water has memory? And so that by having that right angle, which is a man-made memory in the water, that must not be creating coherence in our body, surely.
I don't think you can separate water and people and the pipes. And like there's water in the air, there's water in your brain, there's water in your digestion. 99% of your molecules by count are water molecules. By volume, you're born about 90% water and it shrinks to about 50% if you live a ripe old age and become like a serious prune. Like you get down to like 50-55% water, but we're born like babies 90-95% water. But the number of molecules that are water molecules, 99%. That's from Dr. Gerald Pollack at the University of Washington, right? So it's all water. So we don't honor water's nature. Again, I've sat around like just thinking about this for years. So just think about people for a minute. Think about somebody who you imagine who never gets off the couch. They just sit and watch TV. Now, I don't even have to introduce you to that person. But if I give you the choice of meeting that person or somebody who does Ironmans and goes out into nature and is constantly outside and is fit and tan and moving all the time, who do you want to spend an hour with? Right? Can't you just feel the way your life force like drains out of thinking about sitting down on the couch next to that TV person? They're going to talk about the news. They're going to have aches and pains. They're going to have a pretty small life, right? Because we're made to move. We're made to move. It's part of why I get so much joy watching my kids run on a field. I just love a human body moving, right? And it's the same way with water. If I give you your choice, you want to go hang out in a waterfall in Maui with me and feel the water cascading on our heads, or should we go sit by a pond? Which one would you prefer? Right? How about some water that's like really stagnant, doesn't move at all? Should we go sit in that water? No, we don't want to be around it. But if I say, hey, let's plan to meet up in Maui next year, and I'll show you some of my favorite waterfalls, you feel the excitement. So we're inseparable from water. Its properties are our properties, right? So moving water is where we want to be. And water doesn't want to move in a long straight line. How about if I tell you how to walk and how to move and everything to do for the rest of the week? Do it in a straight line, just the way I say. No, you want to frolic. You want to go here and there. It's right. You want to dance. Let's go, let's put some tunes on and get dancing. It's we want to move. Water wants to move too. So how do we end up building the system where we distribute our water through long straight pipes? It doesn't make any sense. Just like a million other things that don't make any sense. So now the question is, as the people are understanding what doesn't make sense, do we want to reclaim the truth? Or do we want to live inside of these traps? And then if we do want to reclaim the truth, what do we do? About water. I'm here in a house on a computer doing an interview with you halfway across the world, or about as far as you can be, right? And my options, if I choose this technology and this setup, are I either have to go out to moving water in nature every day, which it's not happening from where I am, or I have to bring devices into my home that move the water here. Those are my choices. So I choose all the little things, the salt in the water, the lemon, the water-rich foods, and I choose the devices because you can't get enough of moving water. You just can't get enough of it.
That's so cool. Gosh, I'd love to, I've been learning a lot about our bodies, and our bodies are like a crystal, and our body can take in energy and, from nature, and we can shift and change. And what you were talking about with, an athlete or being in nature, or being in the waterfalls, yes, that is where it's at. And our body can shift and change. And I've been learning a lot about, if you've got sore muscles or sore organs or whatever, your body's needing to heal. Our bodies are full of inflammation these days from so many different angles. It's if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to keep getting the same result in terms of these man-made kind of foods, man-made exercises under man-made lights, so getting in nature, drinking the right water, we're all about healing and the frequency therapy, the right frequencies. And so, yeah, the body can heal. Hey, so does this type of water accelerate the healing process in the body?
It's a great question. So I've been mostly in pain for 20 years, and it's not like really awful pain. It's just enough to kind of sap the life out of a person. So I had irritable bowel for 7 years, and I had a Lyme diagnosis about 5 months ago. And I haven't played tennis until 2 weeks ago for 20 years because of pain. Like, I stopped playing at 31 because my joints hurt, my knees hurt, my shoulders hurt, my forearms hurt, and I'm back on the court. So I got a pretty good perspective for answering your question. People have said to me over the years, when I'm transparent, vulnerable, open, like, I don't have anything to hide. So I've been hydrated, but still in pain. And so people are like, well, doesn't your hydration take care of that? I'm like, well, it might for you, but my body, in bringing me wisdom over the last couple of decades, has used pain as a mechanism to open my consciousness. That's the way it's worked. So I have a really sensitive body, and I get to learn a lot from it. And that makes me able to teach and have wisdom and feel things that I never even dreamed that I could feel. So it's really worth it. The answer for me about creating healing is, I don't think it's possible to create healing without hydration in the body. Like, if you're all dried up, the uphill, I mean, maybe if you're really young, but the uphill battle that you're facing, if you don't have hydration as a tailwind in your life, it's like, how are you going to get anywhere? And then for me, the wisdom of my body, on December 26th, so 3 months ago, I hosted a Zoom call for my community. And I told them we would talk about water for the first hour, and then I would stay talking about current events for as long as they wanted to. And they wanted to for a total call of 4 hours. And I was standing at this desk, and standing for 4 hours was enough to upset the balance of my sacrum and to basically cause my body to fall apart. So by January 6th, I was still battling the Lyme, went into my doctor, and I was like, I could barely walk. Like, this is really, really bad. And so we said, all right, let's change everything. So I was taking great supplements to give my body the nutrition that it needs to make, I think, healing. I was doing the hydration, but we stripped everything away. I got a neck chiropractor. I got another new chiropractor who activates one muscle at a time. I was going to myofascial sessions. I started going to a guy who worked on my nerve system, activating, like, I don't know if it's fair to say like one nerve at a time, but he would activate muscle sets and would just keep resolving nerve pain. And I started taking Epsom salt baths all the time, increased the level of certain nutrients like cod liver oil and getting more fats into my body. So what I'm pointing at is, because of the wisdom of my body of bringing me to that crisis on January 6th, I went all in on every solution I could find. And some people will say, well, try this one to see if it works. And I was like, no, like, enough. It's been 20 years. Like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to spend my money on anything other than another healing modality. Let's go all in on every one that makes sense. And so that's what we did. And now it's not even 3 full months later, and I'm already back on the tennis court. So right? Amazing. So I don't think I get that support if I don't have the water working for me. But I also think that we're complex. And depending on the level of the dysfunction in the organism that you're dealing with, sometimes you just got to bring it. You gotta like bring it all. So, the people who get the worst results with our product, first of all, it's almost always angry people. They're almost always angry with me when they're buying it. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go, And then, yeah, it's funny. And then they call and they say, I'm not getting the results that you told me I'd be getting from the water. I'm like, well, how much water are you drinking? They're like, well, I drink like 2 glasses a day. I'm like, well, it's not a miracle serum. It's not a magic pill. It's like, if you want to heal, I think consideration of like, what is hydration and going after that, like for real. So for me, you probably noticed, like, just before we went live on the video, I went across the room and I got 2 types of magnesium, and I came over here and I popped them down because I was feeling a little low. And I tell you, it got me. That magnesium like lifted me right back up. So you got to go with all of it. You got to bring it. And so bringing it in hydration means immersion in hydration. And there's an aspect of hydration that is minerals. So I've had a pretty intense day in the kind, like, it was very cerebral and there was a lot of work done. It was really important work and there was emotion tied to it. And so about 3 hours ago, I actually went and took a nap for an hour. And my nap finished an hour before our interview. So I was a little groggy and a little off. And I don't want to come on the air like that. So I know, like, what amps my hydration? Magnesium. So I went and got 2 types, not 1, but 2 types to make sure that my body would have what it needed. And it's actually like as good a pickup as I've ever had. Like,
totally, the spark plugs of life, they say. That is so interesting. So yeah, of course, the water is going to be the foundation on top of these other healing modalities, and you were just like, come give it to me. That's such a great philosophy when going through a bit of a crisis, is really being open to it and tackling it head on, and resting. I love those baths. Oh my god, when I went to Japan and they did all the onsen hot baths every day, at the end of the day I was like, this is the best self-care practice of any culture I've ever, like, so good. Every day, warm bath in the cold, jump into the cold shower. I was just like, this is amazing.
that's awesome.
I'd love to know, there's someone that I researched many years ago, was a doctor, can't pronounce his last name, talks about the water cure, Dr. Batman, and he says, I think he was,
Batman, yes.
and he was curing people. He was a doctor and he was curing people of these crazy diseases with just a couple glasses of water every hour or something like that. And he talks about majority. Is that right?
Not just that, but he was in an Iranian prison and he was given the opportunity to leave and he declined so that he could finish his work with the people there. And he was given really poor quality water. And, what resources did he have? He prayed over that water. Like, I mean, what else has he got going for him? He's in a prison. And so, he says your body's not sick, it's thirsty. Right? That's his basic premise. And, your body's not hungry, it's thirsty. Your body's not whatever you're complaining about, it's thirsty. He's great work. Dr. Batman is the way most people refer to him.
Yeah. I think that's such a good concept. Whenever I'm like, oh, I'm stressed or I get triggered, I'm like, oh, I got to go eat something. Actually, hang on a minute. I got to go drink something, and I did a 13-day water fast last year with a friend of mine, and the most transformational mind, body, spirit quest I've ever been on. But yeah, we had a good water filter, and we had this one at the time, but I wish we had your one as well, because it's like the water became our life force. And anytime we were dropping and I saw his energy dropping or getting irritated, or my energy was dropping, I'm like, oh, I'm falling away. He's like, here, drink some water. And we drink some water, a bit of salt, bit of lemon, some greens powder, and then we'd be back on. We're like, wow. And it's obviously there's a bit of a lull time when your body's like, come on, give me something. But you move through that. The body is so powerful. And it wasn't just for the weight loss, but like the cleansing that happened even 12 days in, 13 days in was just like incredible. So this water must help as well, hey?
So people might be confused a little bit when you say you had that device and this device. So hold the one up that you have for a second.
Yeah, let's show the difference.
So this is the newest. This one's called Aqua Energizer. And that one's the one that we've been selling since 2013. That one's called Natural.
This one you've been selling, okay.
Yeah, I've been selling that. I've sold more of those on the planet than anybody.
And so the water goes through, just for those who don't know, the water goes through the top, it acts as a funnel, and it brings out the water here. Now, this is the new one, and you guys have crystals as the actual on the inside
right?
as well, right?
So again, it goes through the top, and this is, copper. And then inside are crystals from a mine in Brazil. And then outside is ormus. People think this is paint. They smell it and they're like, oh, that's paint. No, it's ormus. So this is sea minerals, morning dew, ash, and plant resins decoded on here. And why that's important is one of the big differences between this device and that device. So that device is made from plastic, and it's got spheres inside it. And it always bothered me to be selling a plastic solution to a plastic bottle problem. At least it's durable, right? So these devices are made from all natural materials. And the scientist who makes them has become very quickly one of my mentors, and like, he just totally inspires me, because like we sent one of these into the HIFO lab, Gina Bria's Hydration Foundation. She has the HIFO lab to get it tested using the methodology of Gerald Pollack. And our scientist said, I hope it fails. And I was like, dude, what are you talking about? He's like, well, if it fails, I'm going to learn something about water that I've never learned before. I was like, if it passes, you're going to have the first certified device in the world. I really want that. He's like, yeah, I understand. So he said, here, Patrick, let me show you in 30 seconds how to show somebody with 3 senses that water's structured. I'm like, all right. So this is a whole house device. Water goes in one end, comes out the other. So he takes a garden hose. He says, it's turned on. He goes, look at the water. So I look, it's like a tight stream, right? Arcing out. He said, now feel it. So I feel the water. And then he says, so that's your baseline. Then he takes the hose and he puts it in here. He goes, look at it now. And the water's like expanded. It's wide, it's open, it's light. Like you want to touch it. And then I put my hand in it and it feels every bit as soft as a Maui waterfall. Like totally soft water. So I got my sight, I got my touch, and then he holds the end of the device up and he goes, here, drink. And so I drink out of the water, and then he takes it away and he takes the hose. And when I drank out of the water, it tasted phenomenal, and I didn't expect it, right? Because I know hose water is gross. And then he holds the hose out, and of course I had to finish the test and it tasted like every hose water I've ever had, which is gross. Hose water is gross. And so with sight, with touch, and with taste in 30 seconds, he showed me how I can know that this water is structured. So I really love this guy. He, when he was making these, so right after I met him, I placed an order for a couple hundred of these, and we had no idea what they were going to look like. I was like, I'll take 99 small ones. I'll take 33 house ones and 33 for shower, sink, garden. And you can let me know what I just bought and how much would a 50% deposit be. And so he went to work creating them. And during the creation process, he got so excited. And there was one like really funny phone call where he calls me up on a Saturday and I answer the phone. Hey dude, I'm with family, I can't talk. He goes, too bad. He goes, I was just passing water through my device and I realized that there was a frequency coming off of it. It was resonating. So I went and got my subsonic decibel app on my iPhone. They're like an app you can get for $39. He has like all these different tools. He goes, I started listening to it. Holy crap, dude. It's the Schumann Resonance. It's the freaking frequency of the earth. He's like so excited. He's like, I didn't know.
Way. How?
Do that. Wow.
How? Tell me this. This is for real?
He literally said, I didn't know we could do that. Wow. And that's been the delight in our partnership, is that I'm not controlling and I didn't get a vote in how the product would turn out, right? So I could tell him, like, he put minerals on the inside for a while, and now he started clearing it out so it's just copper in there. And when the ormus minerals are on the inside, sometimes people get blue flecks in their water, which are no big deal. I mean, they're not toxic in any way, but people still don't like Blue Flex. So I got to vote and say, hey, feedback from the marketplace says people would rather not have Blue Flex in their water. Can you do something about that? And he go, yeah. But in terms of like the length and the design, he's like, one of the funnier calls is like, he's like, I just built a device using all the same parts that I used for building the other devices. And after I made it, I just went to test it to see if it works, and it doesn't. He said, there's an alchemy happening when I make each one of these, and it either happens or it doesn't. So I have to test every one post-production to make sure it's functioning the way it's intended to. So it's been like a journey of miracles, of like not understanding what's going to happen and applying ourselves and just being with the process to bring these things to fruition. So it's been one of the most interesting experiences I've ever lived through.
So you've got the copper, which is a conductor. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very good with scientific principles. I mean, in general, I know copper is a conductor, but you know, I think what I can tell you that I understand from talking with our scientists, you know, it's not like I have mastery over it, is when you open water up in a vortex, it becomes hungry. You know, in up in Vermont, IBM has a plant, and they have 11 grades of water. And you know, they make semiconductors, and they need water that's like ultra pure. And the ultra pure water is so pure that it's toxic to humans. It'll like start eating us because it's so hungry, because there's nothing in it. And so I just got distracted because I got this really weird thing. This is an example of a superpower. Now, like, how does this happen? So I have a sensitivity that's energetic, that's right above this quadrant of my head, that if I get around something that's really toxic, I start tingling right there. And so like people will be using chemicals in a house, or even I'll get too close to a dead skunk on the road. Or in this case, it's actually really strong right now. The thought of the highest grade waters at the IBM plant in Vermont, I can feel the toxicity of that. Right. And my being is guiding me, like, you don't want anything to do with that. I know it's like really way out there, but
no, we get it. This is the community that understands it the most.
Cool. It's great to be able to share stuff like that. So I just got distracted because it like came in really strong. It's not the first time I've had this sensitivity while talking about that water. So really, really interesting.
The frequency, yeah, that's hit you hard. No worries. You were just talking about that type of water it's so pure that it's toxic.
Oh, it's hungry. It opens up. So the vortex, thank you. The vortex opens up. So the reason Joseph wanted to coat these things the way he did is, one, he's an artist, and he needed them to be beautiful, right? So every one of them's different and handmade. And I just love that. But two, he wanted it to be functional. So this mineral information is imprinted on the water when it opens up in the vortex. So that's how we're getting energetic information into the water. And there's properties that these devices have that don't make any sense. So I'll give you an example. We bought like a home test strip kit at Home Depot. So I want to test my water, I'm going to get one of these kits. It tests copper. Before this device, it's 0 parts per million. After, it's 1 part per million. But I know this copper isn't eroding like a little bit at a time. It's like, frequency. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how that copper got in that water, other than that this structure creates some magic. Magic's the wrong word to help people really understand, right? It creates transformation of scientific principles, the likes of which we're not used to. Now, I've got a result from the same test that was way more impactful. I mean, it was a really big deal. Using a before and after, we we took water in Gilroy, California, which is an area known to have agricultural pollution. And we measured it before, and there were 9 parts per million of nitrites, which are toxic. That's the toxic form of nitrogen, and it's a byproduct of agriculture in the area, and it exceeds the California safe drinking water regulation. So it's not safe water coming out of this well. And then we poured the water through one of these devices and measured it again, and the parts per million went from 9 to 0. Went to 0. So this is the first device I've seen where we could actually get a chemistry-based result, have a massive change like that. Now, what the first conclusion is like, well, it removed nitrites, but wait, what else happened? Nitrates were also measured on the same test. Nitrates are also nitrogen, but they're in a different oxidation state, and they're a fertilizer. They're life supporting. The nitrites went down to 0. The nitrates went up to 15 parts per million from 5.
So there's no other filtration process, just going through this, let's just say, tube with some circular structures that create a vortex, and in doing that, in that short period of time, creates a different elements on the other side. So are we talking about like potentially filtering out fluoride or chlorine? Like I know some of the heavy metals, are these things, these things are really bad for our health, and that's why we have the filters. So do we not need those? Does it, if I have a filter like that already, should I still use it?
That's the question of the year right there. Like literally, that's the question we're going to solve this year. So first off, to get one thing to go from 9 parts per million to 0, it's shocking. Like I've shared this with some doctors and some hydration experts and some colleagues, and like, this is the result we've been waiting for. Like we're not in theory anymore. Does structuring impact physical matter? We're in proof. We have evidence of that happening. Now, the next question you're logically going to is, well, how much, right? So I know with chlorine that once a structured water device is installed in a shower, that it makes no sense that there'd be no chlorine smell anymore. But life experience shows that the chlorine smell goes away. It's gone. And I've seen this with a lot of people, which doesn't mean you'll never get a whiff, because I'll give you an example. So again, this is my lab life for the last 10 years, right? So what I noticed was, in a house without a whole house device, but with a shower device, I go to the bathroom sink, I brush my teeth, and then I use my hand as a cup, right? And I bend down and I put it in, I smell chlorine. I'm like, I don't like that. Now that water is not structured, right? There's no device on that sink. So what I learned was, use the faucet, fill a cup, not even wait, just fill the cup, stay upright, bring the water up to me, no smell of chlorine. So chlorine's a gas. And I think when the water gets to air, that gas will very quickly clear away. And so it's theoretical more than scientifically proven, but if you don't smell chlorine anymore, you're pretty good. And you can still get a whiff. Like an example of a whiff for me is like, I don't really ever do this, but I remember doing it once. I turned on my shower to hot, like all the way to hot, and I shut the door and I walked out, and I, like got something, and then I came back in and I smelled chlorine, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do that again. Right. So I prefer to leave my door open a crack, to at least turn on the fan, right? So that there's a way for it to clear. So I have had whiffs of chlorine along the way, but I've talked to thousands of people. I'm a pretty unusual CEO. I actually have, for like 4 years, I was the only one that answered the phone. And that was because I was still trying to figure this out. Like I hadn't written a book yet. I didn't know what I know now. And so I just had to talk to everybody. I'm like, well, here's how I think it works. Could you let me know, like, be sure, like with your question and your concern, after you have the experience, will you come back to me and tell me about it? Because I need to tell other people, and I'm only going to learn. Like, I think the most important scientific proof in the world is if we can find somebody who's not biased, who is going to give the truthful experiences of others. That human body as an instrument gets us our best data. So, let there be no doubt, when my company goes and seeks to get science on structured water devices, we attempt to find tests that we're going to be successful at so that we can publish proof data, push it into the public, and convince skeptical and scientific minds to come do business with us. Everybody does that. That's what people do. So I think if we can like have somebody who cultivates thousands of people's experiences and tell the truth about that, that's a really good place to get information. And, having had a business that was all about money and feeling how unfulfilling that was, I don't have any reason to compromise telling the truth about people. Like, I just love learning from them and then telling others about it. So I've been very lucky to have so many phone calls with so many people.
Oh, that's what it's about, people. And you never know, like, yeah, a truth will always prevail, and the truth will always come out. I love that you're, sharing this from your heart. And I can't go past the fact that this is supported by Jared Pollack, Professor Jared Pollack. For those who don't know, Professor Jared Pollack, he has studied water for many, many years and has figured out the fourth phase of water. Usually we'd see water as, a solid structure, a vapor, or the three phases of water. I think frozen,
Ice, liquid, and steam.
Steam. There we go.
It's fine. I talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I should be asking. And then he's found the fourth phase of water, which is amazing. How our bodies can even take in sunlight to generate its own energy and negative charge. And so, this is someone I've been studying recently because I find it fascinating. But how does he support this work?
Well, let's get really specific about that, because I don't want to imply anything that's not there. Yeah. So first off, let's give him credit for who he is, right? He published the fourth phase of water in 2013. And that fourth phase you're talking about, what's really unique about it is you can add energy like a battery, and it stores it, and then it carries it into people and plants and animals. Super, super cool. That's the water we want to be drinking, is that water with the energy. Now, you can imagine if you publish a book like that everybody with a product is going to call you up and say, hey, will you try my product? Will you try my product? Will you try my product? My product's the best. My product's the best. And it doesn't work for him to endorse or support any product. That's not his work. So what he did to provide an outlet for that is he trained Gina Bria from the Hydration Foundation on the process of verifying that a device creates structured water. And so Gina Bria formed the HIFO Lab LLC to be an independent agency to do this type of testing. So she was taught and inspired by the methodology of Jared Pollack, and then she uses that methodology to test devices. So it's really, we have a certificate, and it comes from the HIFO Lab, who learned their methodology from Jared Pollack.
Awesome. That's amazing. That's amazing. And so, yeah, he's the water guy. Very cool.
I think it's a really important piece, that certificate, because, when I was primarily focusing on like that blue device that you have, there was always people would call me and they'd say, how do I know it's structured? And I'd say, well, you'll feel better, or you'll like water more, or it feels softer or wetter. And those were answers, but it's a more mature answer to say, well, it's been tested in a lab, and it's also been tested with chemistry-based tests, and it's also been listened to with a subsonic decibel app. We're starting to get nice pieces that fill in the puzzle. And I think that given that structured water devices are engineered to last a lifetime, they're relatively comparable in cost. Like that device you have, you probably bought it for for excuse me, $399, and it's $349 now, and these are $599. So, relatively speaking, if you think about, when I asked our scientists to make these, I told him I wanted him to make them so they last 200 years. That was my goal. It's like, I don't want to sell something that breaks. And so, these have been engineered to last a really long time. They're sold with a 7-year warranty, and that's the guarantee. But I don't feel anything about this that feels like it's going to wear down or break down over time. It's made to be cared for. Wouldn't be a great idea to be pounding on it. But I think that we've reached a new stage where we have more natural materials and more validation from different ways. And so the certificate, it gives people who are hearing about structured water for the first time a way to say, hey, wait a minute, Gerald Pollack is a serious scientist, the head of the bioengineering department at the University of Washington. He's published this book, The Fourth Phase of Water. He's created this methodology for measuring water. And, the HIFO lab has used that to measure this. I can know that this is creating structured water.
I think it's so important. So important to know that. That's it. Drink some water, everyone. I'd love to just last couple of questions and we'll wrap this up. I think I have to quickly change the internet just because it's lagging here, but I'll pass this question to you and then I'll quickly fix this up. But if you could send a message out to everyone's smartphone right now, a text message, they're all going to pick it up and go, oh my gosh, I'm going to read this. Would there be a message or something that you'd like to share with them right now?
I don't know if I can do it in a smartphone size soundbite, but living water is that which connects us, and it's that which we're made of. And with so much pain and suffering in the world and so much disconnection from the truth of who we are, so many people searching for answers, what if we just stopped as a culture and said, let's go back to basics. Let's go back to water and understand what happens in cellular function. Let's go back to understanding the essence of who we are and building life from the base building blocks up. Let's consider that water, as Rustum Roy, the material scientist from the University of Pennsylvania, said, water may just be the most malleable computer that there is. So what if all that water information, what if the properties of water that we may not really understand, like, you can have an eruption on the sun and you can have bacteria on the earth get the information faster than the speed of light. So what's the mechanism? I put forth that we have to contemplate water in that discussion. We have to consider that water has properties of connectivity that we just don't understand. Let's talk about the superpowers again for a second, Zach. How can I take something I've never studied in school, never read a book about, never had any expertise on, and I simply sit quietly and focus on it, and then I start to develop understanding, and I start to get inspired. Like all of a sudden I know, hey, there's a guy, Zach, in Australia who's an expert in this topic. If you call him, you'll get what you're looking for. Where does that inspiration come from? Maybe it's all in water. Given that we have this culture that tells everybody go buy this to get fulfilled, or if you earn this, or you get this status, or those type of things, and that's not working for us. Maybe we could try, maybe the answers are in water. Maybe we should just focus on being hydrated and see what happens to our emotions. I know for me, I'm an emotional wreck if I get dehydrated, and I'm rock solid steady when I'm hydrated. It's really an amazingly close correlation. So how about we start experimenting, not just one like guy in West Texas who's like really just drawn to water, but a whole bunch of us. What if I experiment living in a greater context of water? How might my life turn out? How might it turn out for all of us if we started doing that differently?
I love that. Yeah, that is a great way of looking at it. Yeah, life, water, it's all connected, and that appreciation, that gratitude, the prayer, more water, more hydration, becoming more us, stepping into our potential. And we're living in a world where literally the frequencies, the man-made frequencies around us are dehydrating us more than we know. The light, the blue light that we're under from our bedroom or our kitchen or our smartphone or laptop, these lights I've been researching have been dehydrate us on a cellular level. And so it's more important than ever to stay hydrated.
So let me go a little outside the lines of where you've asked me about, but it's kind of a pet project of mine.
Mm.
It's like, what's possible for humanity? I think about that. And inside of the way most people live, there's a dream in their head that's guiding and driving them, that has them collecting stuff, interacting with the man-made world, feeling definitions and limitations that are created through school and through media, all these type of things. What if we contemplate life from a perspective that I only have 3 needs? I need food for my belly, I need a pillow to put my head on, and I need people to love. Now, inside of those 3 needs, let's say we get together as communities and we start growing food. It's actually, I just moved to West Texas in the last 6 months, and I feel very lucky to be here inside of this like pandemic type world we've been living in, because we have animals. If you eat meat, there's grass-fed, grass-finished meat, which is really nutritious, and all those organs and things are really healthful. There's opportunity to grow organic vegetables in a really long growing season, and there's plenty of land around that's inexpensive for people to form new ways of gathering, to come together and have people to love. So what if we just like Lubbock, Texas, 250,000 people. We've done the math. It would take 45 acres of greenhouses, which is like my friend's front yard, right? 45 acres of greenhouses, continuously producing vegetables to grow 100 pounds of organic vegetables for every person in Lubbock per year. That's nothing. Like if we as a community wanted to get on with that, like we could just build those greenhouses this month. Maybe it'd take a little bit to get the parts in and whatnot, but the point is it's not a big project. And then, what if we just gave everybody the vegetables that they need? What if we took the wealth we have collectively and just, follow this out for a minute? Because I've really thought about this. If we have the animal products that we need, and we have the vegetables that we need, and we have the shelter, we got houses everywhere and people living in big houses without many people in them. And then we stopped chasing, right? I mean, if somebody's giving you your vegetables and you have your house, what are you chasing? So we stopped chasing and we sat and like, let's get together on Friday and talk about what humans are capable of. Like I'm having these superpower type sensations. Who else is? Why don't we have a panel discussion of everybody who's having an experience like that? Let's articulate that in front of a community and see what everybody thinks. And then let's not just give permission, but let's encourage everybody to discover like the truth of the sensations within them. Because maybe the uniqueness of all of us, like we need all of that to come together in true oneness, right? Like everybody to be their little part. But once you give up the chase of the bunny and that dream that's been inserted into you that tells you you're worthless and that you need stuff to overcome something, and you just hang out with loving people, and then we play with water, we play with organic food and vegetables, we change the chemicals that are inside of us, we won't think the same way anymore. Right? Like if I went on a wheat spree and like ate I don't know, pizza for 3 days, right? Pizza and cake for 3 days. I guarantee you, if you interviewed me after that, I would come up with different things to say than I would today when I've been nurturing myself for consecutive days with, 1 to 1.5 meals a day of organic, fruits and vegetables and grass-fed, grass-finished beef. That's all I eat. I don't need anything else, right? So what if we just like strip it away, guys? Like, let's find out what humans are capable of. Let's find out what happens if we focus on a community, on the energetic aspects of water. Let's find out if we focus on the energetic aspects of ourselves. What's the truth of who we are? And is that future, that truth, so compelling that when we begin to discover it, people who are suffering all over the place, chasing dreams that they didn't even think up on their own, that were injected into them, they just start dropping the dreams and we start becoming a coherent, united species. That's my dream. That's my invitation. So who wants to play?
Sign me up. Sign me up. I know what's just popping into my head now is that, yeah, maybe the thoughts we're thinking and the actions we're taking obviously predicted for us. I had another guest and he was saying humans are so predictable, and if we're in these environments, there's these industries or systems or big corporations that kind of farm our own predictability with fear, with COVID, with the vaccinations, with food, with drugs, with alcohol, with all that type of thing. But it's all a frequency. So if we raise our frequency with the water has memory, and water's everything that you're saying. If we have a different type of water and we just sit with that, we're going to have different insights. And so I love that vision, those 3 things. That is something I'll be sharing for a very long time. I'm all in on that. How do we do that one, Patrick? That's
You know what?
podcast.
You know what? It's not that hard. I think what I find is when we find truth, it's very simply articulated. So all we do is gather. That's the people to love. We engage in loving conversation. So we stop the separation and the differences, and we say, can we unite around growing vegetables together? Can we do that? We start growing vegetables together. Inside of growing vegetables together, guess what? You get to talk with somebody while you're barefoot on the earth, right? Doing some work while you're getting your vegetables, and somebody else is, and there's a different spaciousness. People start to relate to one another, and they go, hey, you're kind of interesting. And, even though we have different things we think, we got a bunch in common. And so it just starts right there. And then it's like, well, let's have community potlucks on Friday night. Everybody come down and let's see what we can do with these vegetables. Let's have a cook-off. Like, humans love to compete. Let's do it in a good way. Let's see who can showcase the best seasonal vegetables. And it's like, everybody's talking about like what a magician you are with, squash or beans or whatever. Like, that's a fun conversation, right? And most of us, we don't know how to talk to people anymore. We don't know how. We're so afraid of our differences and so unwelcoming of each other that we're scared of relating. I used to be terrified of videos, terrified. And now it's like, I love being on here because I have the chance to reach people and I'm so comfortable. Well, that comfort spills over in my regular life too. It's like when I meet people, I just like, where are they and where's the bridge? Where's the bridge where we can meet? So we start having potlucks. Now, what's more fun? The Friday night potluck or going home and playing games on your computer or watching a TV show with violence and whatnot? Like, what's more fun? It's like, well, hey, can we have a potluck again on Saturday? And then it's like, wait a minute, I don't want to go home. Like, I'm just going to come here at 8 in the morning and I'm going to stay with you guys till 8 at night. And I think I'm just going to sleep with the sun now because my circadian rhythm, and I'm rested and I sleep well through the night. And, I'm just going to help people get their vegetables and share recipes and talk with you guys. Do you guys like to play games? Hey, maybe we could get some games going as a community. And instead of our games being like, our cultures like grow up into these war games. Like, how about we have games that grow up into like, who can levitate It might be a little far out there for some, but like who can figure out what humans can do that we don't think we can do? It's like the 4-minute mile, right? Like who's going to break through and give us a way of relating? I know that toxin tingle thing that I have, that's weird. And it's happened so many times that for me, it's law. Like if I feel that, I move away. I just know, like I don't want anything that activates that to be near me. I'm going to go away from it. So what if a whole bunch of people are sitting around eating organic vegetables, meat if they want to, embracing one another's differences and saying, well, what do you feel? What do you experience? That to me is our path out of all of our suffering. 3 needs. I need food for my belly. I need a pillow for my head. And I need people to love. And when we create projects like growing vegetables together, that gives us the engagement with people to love. Then based on exchange of that, and we can start playing games together about what people love. It's just a starting point, like it's a vision, but you know, if a whole lot of us playing it, a lot of the existing structures just fall away.
I agree. That's a very exciting. Like that's why I started a community event called Broth Night, where I cooked bone broth and veggie stew, and we just hung out on a Friday night. And it started with 9 friends in my garage, and then a year later there was like 120 people that would rock up at a venue, and we just hang out. And I had drummers, we had like a meditation, we had just like the best. My friends who would go out and party and drink alcohol came to me later on and said, Zach, that was the most fun I've ever had. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, that was just so good. And there's no drugs, no alcohol, just high vibes, good food. And yeah, that is a great vision, and it's up to us. It's actually easier than ever to do something like this, putting a Facebook event up or putting an event on, Humanitix is a great website, and organizing these community events. Why not? It starts with a couple of people. We need multiple people for the same message as well. This isn't just one person. This is collaboration, not competition. So I love that, Patrick. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the broth night idea. We did a beef party, and then we did an organic vegetable night, and I needed a next event. And
okay, broth night, and let's make it happen. I'd love to fly over for it one day.
That sounds awesome.
This has been super insightful. The knowledge is beautiful. It's really light, and it's really practical for everybody. Please reach out with Patrick at his website. I had it here on the website. Hang on a minute.
I gotcha.
Enterprise.com. How can people get connected? But the wellnessenterprise.com, yeah?
Yep. So THE at the beginning, the wellnessenterprise.com. And just come on over. We got a lot of things working for us, and we love connecting with people, and we publish lots of information to teach people about water. And Zach, I just want to bring us back there for a second. So you hit on the toxins. It's like people want safe water, and they want water that'll make a difference in their lives. And so structured water is the energized water that living beings run on. Your water, you're never going to have safe water. You're always going to have energetic residue, whatever's left in your water. So, homeopathy shows us you can take all the physical substance out of things. So there's no physical substance measurable left, but the energy of it is still in the water. So if people think they're going to get a filter and take all of something, which filters don't do, they reduce, they don't remove, you still have that energy in the water. So structuring device is how you harmonize that energy. For many people, once they harmonize that energy, they're done and they don't need anything else. They feel satisfied. They feel at peace with water. And so what I want to share is that the 3 questions you want to look at around water is, which structuring device do you want? How are you going to get your minerals? If you live on an organic farm, you raise your animals, you raise your vegetables, you eat organ meats, you do all that, you do not need supplements. But We know the majority of us, that's not us. So if you're not there, make sure you're getting mineral supplements in your life, like filling it up as much as you can. And then the third thing is, so in water, structure it, mineralize it. And then the option is, do I need a filter? And for me, the answer is, if the water tastes bad and you won't drink enough of it because of its taste characteristics, get a filter. If your mind says, I cannot drink the water without a filter, I have to have it to feel safe, get a filter. But try the structuring first, or the structuring and the minerals first, and see if you come to peace. And if you come to peace, you're done. If you don't, then get a filter. So I just wanted to make sure we share that with people, because it's a new way of thinking about it. Usually it's the other way around. Like, I think I need a filter first. No, a filter is the optional. It's like the sour cream. Like, do you put that on at the end or not? Your call. But if you want like the burrito, that's the structuring device. You got to start there.
I love that. I'm all about burritos and a bit of sour cream, just for
Right on. Well, all three are possible, right? People can structure, they can mineralize, and they can filter, or they can just structure.
And you've got a book on your website too, right? Lots of downloads, information. They can maybe get in touch with you and whatnot. Send me a message, or Jules Crown as well. That's how I got introduced to Patrick. So this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, this has been awesome. And I'd love to get you back in a couple of months. I'm sure this will be really curious.
Thanks for setting the stage, Zach. It's great to be with you. I appreciate, the community that you've gathered, and that we get to talk about real things with real people. That in and of it is a really big gift. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks again, Patrick. Have an amazing day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.